It's the story which launched 1,000 church fundraisers. The kind which people remember. The kind which people talk about long after. You know the kind. When everyone is given £5 or £10 and asked to go away and use it to make money for the church. And sometime later, everybody brings back to church what they have made, and everybody says, "Well done." Not only have we raised money, but we've done it in a way inspired by the Bible. Inspired by a great story, an inspiring story. From time to time, I have used inspirational words from this gospel story to close a tribute at a funeral service, saying, "Well done, good and faithful servant." I don't do it very often, not because it's not appropriate on many occasions, but because it nearly always just about makes me cry when I use these words. And I don't think that's altogether a good look when you're leading such a service. But they are words which have a peculiarly strong resonance. Words which are somehow from time to time so apt, so suitable, that it's hard to imagine using any others. Both these examples, both these ways in which this well-known story seeps into church life in different ways, are very positive. I think quite uplifting too. And that's maybe how we see this story as a whole. It certainly is for two of the servants in it, the one who invests the 5 talents and the one who invests the 2. But the experience is anything but positive and uplifting for the one who received only 1 talent and chose to bury it. As we noted last week, the 3 teachings of Jesus, stories, parables, sayings that he gave, which we're hearing last week, this week, and will hear next week, all have quite harsh endings. Endings which portray exclusion for some. All these stories, and this one is no exception, are in some respects about judgment. In some churches, in some congregations, you'll hear, I expect, judgment preached on fairly frequently. Maybe I should speak of it more. But to be honest, it's something with which I'm not that comfortable. One might ask, I suppose, who can be comfortable with the idea of divine judgment? And one might conclude only those who are convinced of their own righteousness and virtue. And that's not me. I think it's right to be uncomfortable about judgment. You'll be aware, I'm sure, that my tendency in my preaching is to focus on the image of God which we see in the first half of this parable of the talents. To focus on the God who is pleased, the God who rewards, the God who is generous and brings people close to him to share his joy. The harsh, excluding God, the God who is angry and unforgiving, is not the kind of God that I want to focus on. nor, if I'm honest with myself, the kind of image of God I want to be a part of my worship. In recent years, I've come to believe that our characters and our personalities influence our theology, how we see God, much more than our theology actually influences our character and personality. All too often we seem to make God in our own image. And I'm more and more convinced that we all, of whatever persuasion we have, we all read the Bible in ways that reflect our fundamental character traits and support our deepest convictions, whatever they may be. But what we all tell ourselves, and probably tell each other, is that it is the Bible and our faith which is forming our characters and convictions, not the other way around. So, the aspects of God which I find myself responding to are, I'm sure, reflective much more of my innate character and preferences than they are of conscious, rational decision based on close study of the biblical evidence. Now, I am perfectly aware that many would criticize me for this, perhaps rightly so. But my defense would be this. It would be that I'm just trying to be honest enough to admit what's really going on. And if honesty is worth anything, then I'm prepared to be less apologetic about preferring one image of God over another. And I'm not going to be ashamed to say that I believe in a God who is welcoming, who is loving, who is forgiving, who is inclusive, who takes delight in the world and the people that he has made. And that I struggle to believe in a God who might be harsh or judgmental or who excludes people, especially the fearful, the unimaginative, and the less able, as would appear to be the case from this story. But I still have to reckon with judgment. There has to be a reason why Jesus told this story in the way that he did. So can I offer you this? Judgment is real, but it is best that we judge ourselves. Imagine that you are looking back on your life so far through the prism of this story. Would you want to look back and think, I could have done better? I could have used the gifts I've been given to greater effect. I could have been more helpful. I could have shown more love. I could have given more time and effort. Or would you like to be able to look back on your life so far and be able to say, I've taken risks and I've tried, and sometimes these have been rewarded with success or by new experiences, occasionally by the appreciation of others, sometimes by a sense of achievement, sometimes by developing my abilities, sometimes by the knowledge that I did, or at least tried to do, the right thing. I know which feeling deep down I'd prefer. I'm not going to judge others, but if I judge myself fairly, I might become a better person. Looking back in order to move forward. In many ways, this is a special service in the life of our congregation. As you know, as part of our service, we will have the opportunity to renew our commitment to serve Christ for the advancement of his kingdom. We will also recognize the long service of one of our elders, and we will be welcoming 4 new elders into what will be for them a new sphere of service within the church. Taken all together, this is a celebration of the talents all of us have been given. And we rejoice that God has called each of us and gifted us for different but complementary roles within his Son's church. I am convinced that God equips the members and elders and the minister of each congregation with the mixture of talents God needs for each congregation to be the congregation that God wants in each place. That's why we're all different. God has chosen all congregations to be different, not all to be doing exactly the same thing, but to minister in particular ways as God directs. This, then, is a day when all of us acknowledge and give thanks for the multiplicity of our talents, and on which all of us are invited to resolve anew, alongside one another, to use our talents well, in the hope of one day hearing for ourselves the words of God. Well done, good and faithful servant. Amen.